Hello, Nick Jones here for another instalment of the stretch series. So please check the description to see which length of stretch routine this is. Apart from that, pause and read the disclaimer. Again, I wouldn't recommend this for everyone. I don't know who's watching, but if you get tight hips, this series could be good for you. Apart from that, let's get to it. All you're going to need is a mat and yourself. Next stretch up is going to be our pigeon. You're going to go hands and knees. Right knee nice and far forward, left knee nice and far back. Swing that right foot round towards your left hand. Then just walk your left knee back until you get deeper and deeper into that stretch. Then you can either stay up on your hands like that, or you can drop down to your forearms like I'm doing right now. Or you can then go out nice and long to this position if you want to take it even further, but that's not very comfortable for me. Like I said, I almost recommend holding kind of like an 8 out of 10 in terms of, 7 to 8 out of 10 in terms of tension. You don't want to feel like you're literally ripping the muscle apart. You want to just have a bit of good pressure, uncomfortable but bearable, and just slowly wait for that muscle to ease off. So again, as you sort of progress on this stretch, just relax into it, try and get your hip. So at the moment, try and get your right hip nearer and nearer to the floor, like walk that left knee further and further back as the time goes on. Just really sink into it. This is a really nice one to sink into and hold for a good long time. Again, on this, it's really good to hit it for that good 2 minutes. It really allows that muscle to really stretch off and relax. Again, if you have any kind of job that involves sitting for too long, your glutes can become very underactive and very stiff, and stretching them off is one of the first steps in order to get them functioning like a normal glute should. Stretching and activation exercises are the key. I'd say on completing this stretch, when you're at the point where you're as flexible as you can be on this one, is where your both hips are kind of touching the floor, if that makes sense. Slowly try and work through it, try and get your right hip nearer and nearer the floor. That's going to be it. We're going to swap the sides, so left knee nice and far forward now, right knee nice and far back. Swing your left foot round towards the right hand, as good as you can. And then walk your right knee back deeper and deeper into this stretch. Again, you can complete the stretch when you can get your left hip completely on the floor. So apart from that, just sink into it nice and deeply, just relax into it, just take some time to yourself and just really stretch everything off. Again, I like to hold my stretches for a nice long time. When I was injured, I've had a few injuries in the past, and I found stretching didn't really make a huge amount of difference till I discovered this kind of yin yoga. It's basically where you stretch for you hold certain positions but hold them for longer. It's less different moves, but you hold them for longer. And I just found this really helped me, really helped relax muscles off. And so now when I'm trying to do kind of rehab stretches, I like to, it's good to develop and improve your mobility. It's holding them for that little bit longer that makes all the difference. Apart from that, just relax into it, sink into it. Slowly walk that right knee further and further back over the 2 minutes. Go all the way out, arms straight above the head, chest as near to the ground as you can, if you can. If not, stay on your hands and keep your upper body fairly upright.
Seconds. Rest.
Okay, so next up, what you're going to do, sit on your bum, cross your legs. I'm going to turn to face the camera so you can see what I'm doing. So just cross your legs, And then just walk your hands out as far as you can and just slowly try and work on getting those elbows down onto the floor. If you can only just about get your hands on the floor, that's fine too. It just means it's kind of a stretch we need to work on. Okay, so this is what I call kind of completing the stretch, is where your knees are nice and low and your elbows are down on the floor as you're hitting this stretch. You can take it a little bit further. For those of you who do a lot of yoga out there, some people will be able to get their chest really right down low and almost on the floor, but I'm not quite there yet.
Halfway there. Ten seconds. Rest.
Okay, let's finish there. Take one leg out nice and straight at kind of a 45-degree angle away. And then what you're going to do is reach down, touch the toe. You want to try and keep your knee on the floor though. So if your knee's on the floor and it means you can't get to the toe, that's absolutely fine. Don't worry at all. Just hold on to a bit of your shin and just pull yourself as far down as you can. And again, if you're feeling any pain in your neck or shoulder, remember you don't really have to pull down, just have your hand resting on your leg and just lean the head down towards the toe. So we get a nice big stretch down the back of the leg. So again, when we're trying to relieve pain in the hip, we're trying to stretch every single structure that connects to it. So we're talking about the outside of the leg, which we've just been doing quite a lot with the last few stretches. We want to do the back of the leg, the inside of the leg, and the front of the leg. Also, a lot of these stretches kind of cross over into just above the pelvis as well, like into the lower back. But you might even feel it a little bit on this one as well. Just stretching a little bit of your lower back as you reach down for the toe. Try and pull the toe towards you as well, so you get a stretch down right down into the calf as well. As people who, certain postures and things, you can have quite a tight posterior chain, which is basically everything on the back of the body. So you're talking calf, hamstring, glutes, lower back. So it's good to kind of hit all of those. Apart from that, as the time goes on, just slowly try and get deeper and deeper. Apart from that, we'll go on to the next stretch. We'll go on to the other side.
Seconds.
Right, over to the other side. So again, leg straight out at a 45-degree angle. Make sure that knee is on the floor as you reach down towards those toes.
Let's go.
Again, you don't want to be at, you want to be at kind of a 7 to 8 out of 10 in terms of discomfort. You want it to be uncomfortable but not painful, and then just hold it for it. I found that a lot more effective for me, in my opinion, is being kind of moderate discomfort but holding it for longer. As the time goes on, just slowly try and get further and further. Remember, completing the stretch is just being able to touch your toes. I found since I've been able to touch my toes, a lot of my lower back pain has switched off. And but then advanced is when people can kind of get their chest like right down to their thigh. I'm definitely not there yet, but I'm working on it. Apart from that, just relax into the stretch as the time goes on.
Halfway there. 10 seconds. Rest.
Okay, so next stretch up, we're going to go for the teddy bear stretch. We're going to get your legs as wide as you can, both of them straight. And then try and wiggle your legs as wide as you can. And then just that tall lean over. And then just try and get as far out as you can. This is going to be stretching the inside of the legs and the back of the legs. Bit of both. And again, I've been doing a lot of I was very aware of trying to improve my hip mobility to kind of relieve some pain. I did loads of glute stretching, loads of quad stretching, loads of hamstring stretching, but I forgot about the inside of my leg. And it's caused quite a bit of lateral instability in my hip, and which is why I've got a few issues at the moment. So this is one I'm trying to really work on, is I really want to do loads and loads of stretching for the inside of the leg. It's just as important. And that's it, just hold on to your legs where you can, and then just as the time slowly goes on, just try and go further and further. But again, we're aiming for that moderate discomfort, but we're holding it for longer. Slowly progressing on that stretch.
Halfway there. Seconds. Rest.
Okay, second stretch for the inside of the legs. What we're going to do is still stay in the same seated position, but you're going to go the soles of your feet together.
Let's go.
And then bring your feet nice and close in to kind of your groin area, and then let your knees just fall out to the side. As you can see, my right knee is a lot higher than my left knee. This is because of some of those hip issues that I mentioned. So as you can see, I then slowly, I put my back of my hands sort of out behind me, just so I could relax into the stretch a little bit more comfortably for me. But it's just a bit of an uncomfortable one for me, so it's one I've got to work on. So feel free to do the same option. If not, try and get your chest as near to the ground as you can. And then just relax into the stretch. As you go on, just slowly breathe out and try and get deeper and deeper into the stretch. And let those knees fall lower and lower to the floor.
Halfway there. 10 seconds. Rest.
Okay, so inside of the leg stretch number 3, what you're going to do is lie onto your back. Again, feet touching, like soles of your feet together, and just let your knees fall out to the side. Back of the hands on the outside of the bum, underneath the back if you want, with your arms nice and straight in order to support the back a little better. I just switched to that just because it's a little more comfortable for me to hit that stretch then. And again, just as the time goes on, sink lower and lower into it. Just really try and relax through the hips, and every breath out, almost try and get those legs a little bit lower. Again, you shouldn't feel like you're tearing the muscle apart. You should just feel a moderate discomfort. And yeah, just keep it going. If you need to reset, like if you need to pick the knees back up, reset and go back in again, that's absolutely fine. Feel free to do so. Also, you can play around with your foot position. You can either have your feet kind of further away or closer in to kind of hit different bits of the hip. Apart from that, relax into it.
Halfway there. Ten seconds. Rest.
Okay, into the next stretch. As we're now on our back, what we're going to do, we're going to roll onto our side as if we're in bed. Knees up nice and high. I'm rolling over to my left side. Fetal position on your side. Then what you're going to do is use your left hand to hold your knees down to get a bit of tension. And then relax your right shoulder back. When you complete this stretch, you'll have both knees together on the floor with that right shoulder touching the ground as well. This gives you a nice stretch across the ankle. It'll go a little bit into your lower back. Feel free to pick that knee up as high as you want to get deeper into that stretch. That bit of pressure down on that knee just helps you feel that stretch a little bit more. This is a lovely stretch to hit, this one. And it's really good if you suffer with kind of lower back pain first thing in the morning. And you can really get that lower back to ease off. Just sink into it, relax. So my knees are facing over to the left, my left hand is pushing those knees down, and then I relax my right shoulder back. Just don't worry too much about the head, just look wherever you fancy. Apart from that, just sink into it. As the time goes on, just get deeper and deeper into that stretch.
Seconds. Rest.
Okay, so really slowly come on out of that stretch. Take it nice and easy, and then over to the other side. You really don't want to rush coming out of that one. Now we're going to go over to the other side. Knees over to your right side. Fetal position, knees up nice and high. Use your right hand to hold those knees down, and then relax your left shoulder back. And again, just sink back into it again, same as the last stretch, but just on the other side. Just sink into it. It hits a really nice bit of the back and the hip, this one. And yeah, there's a really good stretch first thing in the morning. You can complete this stretch when both knees are touching and you're pressing them down towards the floor. And then when your opposite shoulder is then touching the ground. Apart from that, just relax into it and just feel the stretch doing its work.
Halfway there. Seconds.
Okay, slowly come on out of that stretch. Now we're going to go onto the front of the hip. What we're going to stretch. Okay, so feel free to double or triple up the mat underneath your knee on this one. But we're going to have right knee on the floor, left foot on the floor. Okay, and then assume this kind of position I'm in here. And we're going to go for a posterior pelvic tilt. So in this position, imagine your pelvis is full of water and you want to try and tip that water off the back. Think of it as tucking your tailbone bone underneath you, and you should feel a nice stretch through the front top of the hip. It's a bit of an unusual stretch. Normally people lean right in on this stretch, but this actually don't have to lean in too far if you're getting that posterior pelvic tilt. So essentially just kind of push that tailbone forward underneath you, and you should feel a really big stretch on the front of the hip. Again, where I'm getting that hip impingement, this muscle sort of is going a bit into spasm for me. So this stretch feels really nice on that. I can feel it amazingly on this bit of my hip.
Halfway there.
So then as this stretch goes on, just slowly go on into it. And if you start to not feel that stretch anymore, just make sure you reconnect back with that posterior tilt where you're tucking that bum underneath you. Imagine you're tipping the water off the back of your pelvis. It's a bit of a weird one, but it certainly works.
Seconds. Rest.
So now we're going to do the same for the other side, under that tripled up mat underneath your knee. Make sure you really pad underneath the knee.
Let's go.
Again, if you've got a thin yoga mat, make sure you've got a cushion underneath that knee. You don't want to be giving yourself bursitis or anything. So now we've got the right foot on the floor, left knee on the floor. Again, we don't need to lean in too far if we're getting that posterior pelvic tilt correct, okay? Imagine that pelvis is full of water and you're trying to tip it off the back of your pelvis. Try and tuck your tailbone underneath you and you feel a nice stretch through the front of the hip. This stretch really gets it for me. It's really good.
Halfway there.
As this stretch goes on, if you start to feel a loss of connection to the stretch, just remember to kind of reset the hips again. So just kind of relax and then go back in and push that tailbone underneath you. Get a big stretch through the front of the hip.
Seconds. Rest.
Okay, this next stretch, what we're going to do is a really big deep stretch in the front of the quad and sort of crosses over to the hip. I'm simulating it, but imagine you're doing this up against the wall. Really pad underneath your knee for this stretch. You're going to hook your foot up like that. I'm doing it against the bench just so you can see how I'm doing this quad stretch. You want your toes up on the wall, and what you're going to do is stand up nice and tall, get that heel as near to your bum as you can. Then your other leg out nice and far in front of you, and then just lean forward and push that hip forward again. Again, almost going into that kind of posterior pelvic tilt again. And you should feel this massively down the front of your leg. Right up to the top by the hip flexors, and then also down into the quads as well. This is my favorite quad stretch to hit, and my mobility in my quads has got so much better since I've been doing this, and it's so much better than the bog standard heel to bum. However, if you can't do this one, I've got some other quad stretches coming up that might be easier. And yeah, just keep it going, relax into the stretch and slowly push that hip further and further forward and get that stretch better and better. So I've got some alternative ways of holding the normal quad stretch coming up in a minute if you're struggling with this one. Just a way of, instead of just doing the standing heel to bum, ways you can kind of hit that stretch a little better.
Seconds. Rest.
Okay, so now let's swap the sides. Repeat the same stretch again for the other side. So we're going to hook the foot up against the wall with the heel nice and close to the bum. Really pad underneath the knee, then the other leg on the floor. Then just sit up nice and tall and just lean forward slightly, push that hip forward, get a nice big stretch down the front of the hip into the front of the leg. And just hold it and keep it going. Feel free to balance on something, get something to balance on. Whatever's nearby and nice and easy to use, like a chair can be something that's quite easy to kind of maneuver around. Apart from that, let's just hit this to the finish on our 30-minute stretch routine.
Halfway there.
So as that stretch goes on, try and get that stretch deeper and deeper, try and stretch it more and more in the front of the quad, all the way to the finish.
10 seconds. Rest.
So we're going to wrap up the 30-minute hip stretch there. Okay, so good long deep stretch into the hip, hopefully improve that mobility. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, really helps me out, and hugely appreciate it, and hopefully see you in the next video.